I had another question. What age can a child start fasting? The answer is it depends. Now, let's say your child is younger. Let's say they're 9 years old or 8 years old, and they're overweight. The first thing that you should do, of course, is do the low-carb diet. It's essential. Do keto. That should handle the weight. If it doesn't, then you might want to do a modification of intermittent fasting, which I will explain. But I first want to mention this. So many kids consume 3 meals with snacks. This is the problem right here, these snacks, even if they're healthy, because every time you eat, you stimulate insulin. So that child is getting all these spikes of insulin all day long. And the pancreas never has a chance to reset. And so it's going to convert a lot of that fuel to fat fuel. It's going to affect their cognitive function, their ability to learn and study in school, and their ability to focus. And the other issue is that, let's say a child is given something right before they go to bed, like cookies and milk before they go to bed. So let's say that's at 9:30 p.m. And let's say they get up at 7 a.m. and have their breakfast. Of course, it's, cereal, a muffin, orange juice, pancakes. Terrible. You only get like 9.5-hour fast. That is just not enough fasting. In fact, that child is going to be set up for a lot of problems down the road. And so another point that's interesting, I would say about 30, maybe even 40 years ago, children and even adults did not do the snacking they do now. So there's been a massive shift in snacking on all sorts of things. And I think that right there is a huge culprit on why a lot of these kids are overweight. Not for calories, but just because you're spiking insulin. So what I'm going to suggest at any age, and there's exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, 3 meals is what you need to have your child be on with no snacks. If they're hungry between the meal, all that means is their meals are too high in carbs and they don't have enough fat or they don't have enough nutrients. If the child has the right meal that's nutrient dense, which is always vital, then they won't need a snack. I mean, we've become literally obsessed about constantly having food there all the time to prevent this drop in blood sugar. And that's simply because everyone's running on their blood sugars. They're not running on fat fuel because their carbs are too high. And so if your child is a bit overweight and you do this right here, and then you do 3 meals, no snacks, well, maybe you can then do 2 meals a day. Just make sure that those meals are really sufficient in calories and nutrient dense. There's some really important nutrients to focus on with a growing child. DHA, which is omega-3 fatty acids, essential. Trace minerals, essential for the growth and development of the brain and the endocrine system and the immune system. And then the B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, and vitamin E, all very, very important. And so in the growth and development of that child, without these, there's going to be problems. And you never want to go low fat with a child because we need that fat for the brain and for the endocrine system as well. Now, let's say your child is really small. Let's say they're 1 or 2 or 3 years old and they're transitioning off breast milk. I wouldn't worry about the 3 meals and 2 snacks at that age. Just feed them when they get hungry. Make sure it's nutrient dense. But I would say when they start to become like 4 or 5 or 6 years old, you want to shoot for 3 meals, no snacks as much as possible. And of course, check with your doctor before taking any of these recommendations. Now, the next point I want to bring up is when that teenager stops growing, roughly between 16 and 18 years old, that's when you can start to do a little bit more fasting, depending on what you're trying to solve or if you just want to be healthy. And of course, I want to emphasize when you're growing, you need more nutrients than when you stop growing. Now, let's just talk about a child having epilepsy. Researchers found that when you fast, you lessen the incidence of epilepsy because of ketones. So the ketogenic diet, especially one that's very high in fat and moderate protein and extremely low in carbs, that can mimic what occurs when you're fasting. And so instead of having a young child going on some type of long fast, you can just put them on the ketogenic diet to mimic that fast. And so the reason I'm bringing it up is because I would always recommend a child to be on a low-carb diet. There's no real good reason to be on a high-carb diet regardless of the age. But where fasting comes in is when you start having weight issues and maybe you have blood sugar issues, maybe your child's a pre-diabetic, then you focus on this right here. All right, so that's my opinion on when a child should start fasting. Hey, before you leave, I just wanted to give you a little quick history on some of the books that I wrote. This was one of the first books. It's called Dr. Berg Body Shapes. It was my attempt at writing about body types. What was very interesting about this book is I actually did all the images myself. Don't ask me why. They look actually not quite as professional as some of the images that I have in the new book. But anyway, this is my first attempt right here called Dr. Berg's Body Shape Diets. And then I wrote a book more extensive called The 7 Principles of Fat Burning. I don't even have a copy anymore, actually, because it's outdated. The next book, I put about 1,000 hours into this one right here called The New Body Type Guide. Major updates on the body types. I put a lot of energy into this. It has professional images, graphics, all sorts of things. Now, the problem with this book is it doesn't really describe what this is really about. Body types are only a small portion of what's in this book. And that's why I changed the name to the Healthy Keto Plan, okay? If you happen to have this book, you don't really need this book because there's only very, very minor updates. But if you don't have this, you need to get this one right here. This book goes into every single detail that you would ever want to know about. It goes into the 7 principles of fat burning. It goes into hormones, the body types, the basic keto plan. It goes into intermittent fasting. I talk about the 10 fat burning triggers and blockers and fat burning strategies with a lot of details in every single chapter. I go into body issues that interfere with losing weight. There's very few people that just have a weight problem. They have a lot of body issues, whether it's sleeping problems, stress problems, inflammation, menopause. I cover that extensively in this book. Then I talk about how to get rid of stress, and I show you a technique. Then I get into exercising. And then I have a lot of really good recipes in this book as well. So this is a good reference guide. On my website, if you get this book, you get this one free. It's called Healthy Keto Intermittent Fasting. This is the shortcut, quick guide to this book. And the reason I created this book is to have you, within 45 minutes, learn how to do keto, okay, in intermittent fasting, exactly what you need to do. Then you can fill in the blanks with this book right here. So right now I'm doing a special. If you get this book, you get this one totally free, or you can go to Amazon and get these individually. So I just want to clarify the difference between this book and this updated one right here. If you don't have this, you need to get this right here. That way you can get the exact correct information to do it healthily.